Welcome, everybody, to episode number 30 of the Art of Marketing podcast webinar series with your friends at Applied Art. Today's episode is Connecting Iowans with Culture with Jana Riecker from the Department of Cultural Affairs. So, Jana, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks. Glad to be here today.
Absolutely. Yep. And today we've got our regulars, George and Shannon and myself, and Mark is out. He will be busy for a while, so it's just us today.
But if I always wave when you say my name, but I guess everyone knows I'm not Shannon. So
just to clarify.
Yes. And all the podcast people are probably wondering why all of us pause after we're done introducing ourselves. We're all waving for those listening at home. So today's going to be a really fun episode, I think. And if you could just maybe introduce the people to who you are and what you do, and maybe explain your role a little bit with the state there.
Sure. Well, I'm with the Iowa Department of Cultural Affairs, and I joined just over a year ago. So my role is Director of Strategic Innitives, and our director is Director Chris Kramer. She has been with the department for a little over 8 years and has done an incredible job of leading our team in developing partnerships across the state, including throughout every community. So we really make it a mission, even though we're based in the State Historical Building at the foot of the Capitol, where it's the hub for Iowa culture. We really focus our efforts on statewide outreach and make sure that we make culture available and accessible to all Iowans. Kind of a bigger overview.
That's really cool.
What is Strategic Innitives?
Sure. So specifically, we do a lot of partnerships with communities. We have grant programs, professional development, and opportunities for connecting the resources that we have available, whether that's education or, like I said, some of the grants, professional development. Really in looking for ways for communities to help tell their story, right? So it's one thing for us to be able to talk about how great Iowa culture is. It's another for Pella, Iowa, to be able to talk about their story and their unique assets. Whether you're Stanton, a community of about 1,000 folks with a very Swedish background, and embrace that, tell that story, and then we go in, talk to them about what that planning looks like, how to leverage not just our state assets, but our partners at the Department of Natural Resources, Iowa Economic Development, and others to be able to help a community grow and really, like I said, tell their story. So that's where my partnerships come in.
So what parts of culture are you guys trying to focus on?
What parts of culture? Well, our department is made up of 3 primary divisions. The Iowa Arts Council is, just as it sounds, it's there to support and leverage the arts and cultural assets. So artists, arts venues, performing arts venues, many who have been hit, obviously, by COVID in this past year. But over 41,000 people in the state of Iowa are employed in the creative sector. 5,000 of those are related to businesses where if you broaden that all, more than 72,000, sorry for all the numbers, I'm a numbers gal, 72,000 people in the state of Iowa are related, like many of you in the creative field, are part of that creative sector. So with the Iowa Arts Council, we offer professional development. In this past year, actually in the month of December, especially, we worked with the governor's office, and our director worked with the Arts Council to administer over $7 million in CARES Act funding, which is coronavirus relief fund. The department itself focused heavily on making sure that we not only invest and ensure people have maybe a path forward, but the Arts Council is there for traditional program grants as well. So each year over $2 million invested in program grants. to help our nonprofits and our culture organizations do what they do so we can help with that accessibility. So the second division is our Produce Iowa. They're the state film office, the film and media office. And Produce Iowa is led by Liz Gilman, and she is, so she works with kind of two primary audiences. One, the Hollywoods and the filmmakers, directors, in recruiting them to talk about all the places that you can film here in Iowa. And then the second audience is those in film in our state. So including communities to help understand the benefits of shooting a film. So we're looking for the next Dyersville, for example, in the Field of Dreams, and which just celebrated its 30th anniversary last year, which would have been awesome to be able to hold the MLB game. So we're excited that it will be held in 2021. It's planned for 2021 August to be able to host that MLB game in Dyersville this year. So with Produce Iowa, it's helping communities be ready for when a Hollywood or national filmmaker, or even an Iowa filmmaker, is ready to create, whether it's in a downtown scene, a great alleyway, or just a field often, and be able to use that to leverage not only the day of the filming, but also maybe tourism for afterwards, because the film can help recruit visitors to the state after the film has been shot. Then our third division, our largest, is the State Historical Society of Iowa. It is includes our building, which I mentioned a minute ago, the Hub for Iowa Culture. It's the State Historical Building and Resource Center. So there's a Archives and Library and Research Center, which is being remodeled, which is being planned to reopen later this year, which is really exciting. It's coming together to be just a really collaborative space, and just really welcoming. So I'm excited to see that come together when we're able to bring people in. The museum in the State Historical Building is open, and it houses our state artifacts, exhibits, items on display. One many of you may be familiar with is the caucus exhibit. It's the first in the nation exhibit, which we have, which has incredible artifacts from presidential candidates who have been through the state. So in the year 2021, we'll be launching and commemorating Iowa's 175th anniversary of the statehood of Iowa on December 28th, 2021. So the way that the state does it is we celebrate throughout the year. So later this spring, we will be launching a 175 exhibit, and to be able to display some of those artifacts throughout Iowa's history. So make sure you come and see that. It will be out. March is Iowa History Month, so we're hoping to have the kickoff then. We know we need to be cognizant of number of visitors with COVID, but we are open and have a great large space for people to come and visit. Also with our State Historical Department is our State Historic Preservation Office, and that division is for historic landmarks, national historic landmarks, state historic landmarks, building preservation. We like to say often the most environmental buildings are those that already exist. So building preservation is something that our team works very hard on with local communities as well.
So as we turn 175 then to commemorate 2020, will you be adding a collection of masks and toilet paper to remind everybody of the year we've survived?
Yeah, sometimes we want to forget right now what we're in, but yes, we have actively been collecting for through our State Historical Society a COVID collection. everything from specific masks to stories, people who share stories of maybe they were here in the early 1900s during the last pandemic. And so we collect not only stories, but artifacts, video stories, just really great ways to be able to, in some time down the road, be able to look back at really what this important event was in Iowa's history as well.
Yeah. Sure.
Wow, there's so many things. It's hard to know where to start. Maybe one of the things I'll ask is you have a lot of experience in marketing in the corporate and agency world. And since that's kind of the theme, talk about how do you market all of these? How do you reach out? What's your outreach look like? It may be too complicated with all the different things that you do, but maybe in general or at a high level, talk about how you
Sure.
approach that.
Yeah, that's in line
Sure.
with my question, which is how do communities find out the resources that are available to them?
Well, that
I think
was a
it's
better, she
that's
said that
great.
better than I
Yeah.
did, didn't she? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'll answer them both, and sort of in the same fashion. It's stepping back and figuring out what it is that you're trying to accomplish, right? So there's so many things, and there's so many great stories to be able to tell. It's identifying what are the ways that we can help create culturally vibrant communities, right? One of the differences, and George, you mentioned it too. Most of my career, I've been in corporate marketing. So we have products to sell, right? We're selling, we're talking about ourselves, and we measure the success on ROI, right? With state government marketing, one of the things that we really focus on is how do we serve Iowans, right? Whether it's a community, whether it's an individual artist, whether it's collecting that story to preserve in a way that can share stories and educate people for years to come. But it's really about understanding what it is that our department can do to help communities and Iowans either access the history that's available or the resources that are available, or grow in their professional and personal careers and lives and communities. So Iowa continues to be a great place to live and work, right? So instead of a traditional marketing that you think about, we focus a lot on education, resources, webinars. We held tasks. We convened task force this last year. Task force specifically around creative venues, music venues, historical nonprofits, organizations. We had over 110 different people join different task force to really listen about what it is that they need, what resources they have, and then bring them together to collaborate too, so they could share best practices, right? If Dubuque is doing something really well, we help facilitate and showcase that to Sioux City, so they can maybe say, oh, that's a great idea. I want to leverage that video asset or that the platform that they're using. So some of it's convening and collaborating from an education standpoint, and others is using the assets that we have to be able to provide our own webinars. So outreach, our education team and our State Historical Society education team has developed what's called educator resource kits, primary source sets, and they've been downloaded over 1 million times by teachers. Wow. To be able to just, and I'm simplifying it, but it's basically Iowa history in a box, right? Here's some materials you can use. Here are photos of the Iowa library or the Iowa history elements that can be a part of it. Just an incredible amount of resources, and it's all about serving Iowans in a way that gives them access to arts, culture, history, all of the resources that we have within our department.
So what's the most What's the most used channel you use to communicate that? Is it email? I mean, are you direct mailing pieces? How do you go about that? What are you finding? Is it social media? Where's your best responses coming from? What's the level of engagement?
Sure. Well, I love the word engagement, so thank you for that. We've built some benchmarks, and one of the things that we focus on, there's sort of 3 platforms, right? And depending upon the audience, the type of outreach is really what matters. So we rely heavily on our media partners. We do a program with the Iowa Newspaper Association called the Culture Wire, where we create a story that goes out to 300 and some newspapers through the Iowa Newspaper Association to do 2 stories a month specifically on culture. It's called the Culture Wire. If they choose to share it, I think that's something that is with this free asset. It helps tell stories of Iowa communities and how those communities leverage their cultural assets. So, for example, if Grinnell runs a story based on something happening in Van Meter, maybe the people in Grinnell will go and visit the Van Meter group. They'll go visit that exhibit or that activity or artifact, even a museum, and then bring some of the ideas back to Grinnell to be able to implement in their own community. So the Culture Wire is one way. We also do our own outreach to audiences via our newsletters, right? We carry about 6 specific subscriptions, but send out, I think the number was 170,000 some emails, making sure that our audience gets the resources that they need. So I think a lot of it is how do people want to be communicated with? We do a lot with social. We focus a lot on outreach and then measuring that engagement. Google Analytics tells us that we've more than raised by 400% our traffic on the website from over 2 years ago. And part of that is just the growth, the content, the rich content that we're putting out there, webinars, the primary source that I talked about, one-on-one engagement and grants that are available and applications that are available. So just the content in general, inviting people in and then paying attention to who we're reaching, so we're making sure that it's not just talking to the same audience every time, but we really try to grow that audience and let more people know about it.
You know, that's a theme that we hear repeatedly. You know, do the internet and people are getting online and researching that really the first level of marketing is educational, and creating really good quality content seems to be really important to that whole process.
Yeah, our team, I'm incredibly impressed with our staff in all of the divisions, our Iowa Arts Council team, and their knowledge and passion for serving Iowa artists, arts venues, organizations. On December 2nd, when we found out that we received the $7 million grant funding from the governor's office that had to be spent or invested by the end of the year, they had to turn around, I think 500 and some applications in just a week or 2 time. Wow. To be able to get those funds distributed. And that's an incredible passion for supporting Iowans and Iowa artists, music venues, those that we know really needed the support. Yeah, so so that's one division, right? And their passion, just the content itself. We pay a lot of attention to not only what's on the site, but how we get people and where we direct them to the website. So while that's a great thing, it's also just one venue for people to engage with us. We still have, we do a lot of community visits. We call them DCA drop-ins, Department of Cultural Affairs drop-ins, where we bring together cultural leaders and organizations, developers within a community, and again, talk about what are they trying to accomplish, what's their story, what are some maybe grants or plans available for them to be able to get started in that storytelling, but then also grow and leverage, so again, we can help them become a culturally vibrant community and help with their tourism and growth.
You talk about the different resources that are available, and obviously one of the resources everybody needs to tell their story is funding. So is that a resource? You talk about grants a little bit. Is it mostly applying for grants? Is that how communities get what they need?
I think it starts a little bit before that in the planning, right? Like anything, if you don't have a plan, you can apply for something and you don't yet know how to make it successful. So it's a lot more, it's a really collaborative effort. We do have a list, we call it the Creative Placemaking Grant opportunities, all available on our website. But it starts with a conversation. And like I said, our director, Chris Kramer, she does an incredible job bringing together and just thinking through how do we help leverage, how do we help a community, understand where they want to go and what their unique assets are. It's not a cookie cutter thing. If everybody tried to have a tulip festival, nobody would go, right? So what is your community story and where do you start with that? The genuine nature of that is really what helps not only the grant application, but the success of the growth, right? You're going to get genuine local buy-in. You're going to get genuine business investment in that growth. So I mentioned Stanton a while ago. They're part of our Iowa Great Places group. Iowa Great Places is a program that we have on creative placemaking in communities, and they leverage downtown. They leverage their cultural assets. They bring together community tourism, in a small community of 1,000 people. They really have a lot of great things going on and just a really good story to tell. So they then are able to invest in downtown business revitalization, new office space, recruiting businesses, recruiting families, a strong school district, and some of them, Stanton's about 40 miles from Council Bluffs and in that region, so they might be commuters, but they choose to live in that community because of the cultural vitality. And the Iowa Great Places program is one of the several that we offer. We also offer cultural entertainment district designations, which is, as it sounds, for cultural entertainment. The designations really just allow more of a collaborative nature between different communities and how to, again, leverage the cultural assets, but also entertainment and things that make a community unique.
Now, does Stanton have a video that highlights how great their life is, or do I need to reach out to somebody?
No, we do have a video that we created for them. So I'll make sure that I send it over to you guys that you can share with it. But our Iowa Great Places program, one of my team members, one of my staff, Dan Bolsom, is a former TV reporter, now on staff to just do that, to capture some of the great ways that we help communities tell their story. As a matter of fact, he worked really hard with our entire team, our administrative team as well, to host our 9th annual Celebrate Iowa Gala on December 11th. So if you go to our Iowa Culture Facebook page, there are snippets of some really, really great places. The Celebrate Iowa Gala is typically an in-person gala, right? A formal event, cocktails and Iowa food and beverages, and Iowa artists that we showcase. This year, as many did, we went virtual. So we had a 3-hour segment on a Friday night in December, where the first hour we talked we leveraged, again, Liz Gilman and the Produce Iowa folks brought in celebrities from who has studied at the Donna Reed Theater in Denison, Iowa, and showcased some great Iowa connections with Hollywood and growth, et cetera, that the Produce Iowa team is able to help leverage. We also had Liz hosted Tom Arnold, who's an Ottumwa native, to put his handprints in an Iowa exhibit. We have a whole showcase of Iowa celebrities' handprints, sort of like the Hollywood star, but the Iowa version. And so she brought Tom Arnold in, and also was showcased in that evening, on our Friday evening. But the second hour of the program was highlights and videos and performances of places that you don't ever really get to go. So the American Gothic House, where the Grant Wood House, normally you see the outside of it. The video took you inside, and the Brazilian twins did a music video that is available online. And so we were, and when we did one at the Surf Ballroom with, I should know this by heart, but it's, we did a performance at the Art Church in Malvern with Taylor Peak from Harlan, Iowa, a musical performance there. So we took the Celebrate Iowa Gala and traveled Iowa, brought all the assets together, and then showcased it on that December 11th event. And now those videos are available, like you asked, Shannon.
That's
to be able to showcase
fantastic.
all those. Video
Yeah,
tells a great story.
That's
Yeah.
great.
You know, I was curious about the grants. You know, not to mention when you said Stanton, I think of the water towers first thing. So they have their own claim to fame. I don't think people, it's artists or companies realize all the grant opportunities that are available. And what would your recommendations be about writing a good grant? Because I think a lot of people struggle with how do you even approach something like that?
Yeah. When you're in it day to day, you forget that writing a grant, it could be a little intimidating. Our Iowa Arts Council team hosts events. The grants really, the season, if you will, they open in February, and the majority of our grants will deadline May 1. So we're just about getting into that season. And we host, usually in person, but now probably a combination hybrid, virtual and in person, grant education sessions, specifically to say not just how to apply for a grant, but what one's going to be the best for you, right? Again, it's all about making sure that we're as accessible as possible, and that if you do have questions, those sessions are available. They're not posted yet, but when the grants open up, then we host, and the Arts Council team and our State Historic Preservation team have traveled around the state. We want to make sure that we get to as many communities as possible to hold those grant sessions. We can get 30 people in a session. We've had, with virtual, over 100, just trying to make sure that people understand, A, what's available, and B, what's going to be the best fit for them, and timing. We talk a lot about maybe there's getting that plan in place. Maybe this year isn't the cycle for you to apply for the grant, but start your planning now, and then by next spring, you'll have the idea and the strategy together to be able to apply for, sometimes it's a $1,500 grant. Others can be $10,000 or $50,000, and that can be a significant investment in a community. And we like to, again, leverage other state assets that might be available. We're fortunate, our federal partners, we work with the National Endowment for the Arts, the National Endowment for Humanities, the National Park Service, and Arts Midwest, to be able to provide both federal and regional dollars. So it's not just state tax dollars, it's federal dollars that we help Iowa organizations and nonprofits and artists invest in their communities. So it's all about education, George. It is, sometimes it's knowing that the resources are there. So we're really trying hard to continue to amplify what's available. And then when we get the attention and communities are like ready to go, we help walk them through how to get started and what that looks like, so it doesn't seem so intimidating.
Yeah, it's quite fascinating.
One of the questions I had was more specifically about all of your past roles in kind of the private sector and the agencies and all the different stuff. What's been the biggest adjustment? I know you said sales versus serving. Maybe if you could give like an example of some of the ways that you guys are doing things that are similar to marketing, even though you guys are going for that more serving approach to the community rather than trying to sell a product or a service.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, I've had the fortune to be able to work in some incredible companies that pay a lot of attention to their employees and professional development. And one of my jobs was at WHO Radio. So I was proud to see Van Harden in his retirement last night. And I think today was his last morning on it, on WHO. But I also want to, so part of it early on, it was about how to help people tell stories, right? I bring up WHO and radio specifically because at the time I was really fresh in my career and had some great mentors who helped me understand that I wasn't selling airtime, I was selling stories, right? I was helping people tell their stories. And I brought that to, I continued to bring that to my career to be able to help, whether it was in magazines, in editorial, et cetera. It's really just helping others tell their story. So part of that is how you're measured, right? And you're measured in ROI. What's the return on my investment? And we we think it's fun to be able to monitor now the dollars that you invest. They're a lot more, you can measure them a lot more than you could when I first started in my career. It was like, well, about 50% of your marketing dollars work, we just don't know the 50%, right? That old saying. Now it's a lot more about, if I invest this, I anticipate my ROI being X, right? And every dollar you spend on the internet, you know exactly how many people saw it. Every time I send an email out, I know who opened it, I know who they are, I know what buttons they clicked on. I mean, there is knowledge available that can freak people out, but it's valuable. And if you use it, if I have the same people attending my events, I want to make sure I say, you know, I don't see that you're a member of this. You should join our membership, or you should come to this other. Maybe there's something else that we can leverage and cross-sell that. I think that the biggest difference isn't necessarily just between state and private sector, so much as just the focus on analytics that we've been able to see throughout marketing in general. And I know everybody has probably has seen that, and if you don't, you should pay attention to the analytics, because that's how you know that your investments are working. And like I said, with the tremendous increases that we've had in not just growth in newsletters and outreach and attendance and website traffic, but just in general, making sure that when you do it, you make the people that are there feel welcome, so they want to come back and tell others about it. And I think so. There's a similarity. You know, I've always been in sales. I think I started in sales when I was in third grade as a Girl Scout, right? It's all about cookies and making sure that everybody that I always won the competition, right? And now the sales from the state perspective is much more about helping others sell. How do you sell your story? How do we help a filmmaker who has received one of our grants be able to leverage that? With Liz and our Produce Iowa team, she has a group that when we invest in the filmmakers, they're able to spend, so say $30,000, a $30,000 grant that has spent in Iowa. So those dollars need to be reinvested into Iowa. So when the film producer shoots, it benefits the community too. So it's sort of a pay it forward, and the communities in which the programs are shot are leveraged. So it's about telling stories, Ryan. I don't know. I don't think any marketer would disagree with that.
Jana, it's so interesting. You mentioned Van's retirement because one of my former coworkers, Eddie Hatfield, I was on radio, KJJY. He just retired after 36 years. And I remember you're so right about the storytelling because when I was part of that group of stations, we monetized the websites for the first time. And people got to see behind the scenes and they got to learn about those DJs where all they'd ever been was a voice, and businesses were eager to run banner ads and have block spaces and have their ads associated with the DJs that they liked and the music that they loved to listen to. It really was about the story that was so captivating.
It's still about relationships. I mean, you look at it on social media and how we use that to stay connected, even though we are apart. One of the, so two things that are part of that. The social media platform, iowaculture.com, it's our Facebook page. Every afternoon during the pandemic, mostly for the spring and summer, at 3 o'clock, we'd have a culture coffee chat, if you will. And we would highlight a live video or a performance of an Iowa performer. And while the performance was great, and it was a lot of work on our team's effort to be able to have somebody available at 3 o'clock every day, the feedback and the comments and the connectivity of Iowans, that was the fun part to watch. How somebody in Iowa City would connect with somebody in Mason City and say, "Oh my gosh, we went to school together," and so they could see and share with each other on that. So part of it is just giving that platform for people to have that connection too. Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to mention, the movie grants that I was talking about before, those are Greenlight grants. Those are an incredibly new program that Liz and Director Kramer came up with a couple of years ago, successful in that reinvestment. And I just wanted to make sure I said what they were, Greenlight grants. Got to market them, right?
So what's your biggest challenge? Obviously you don't have unlimited resources, and the pandemic's a problem. But overall, what is your biggest challenge?
So when I started, one of the things that we wanted to be able to do was set priorities to make sure that we could meet all the needs. Right? There's just so many great things that could be happening and so many great stories that we should be telling. Where do you start, right? So I think one of the biggest challenges is making sure that that we're reaching the people when they need to be connected with, right? We're all rolling forward. We send out emails, you have community meetings, etc. And then you find out about a project that we really could have helped been a part of. So it's how do you get people to come into the fold and understand the benefits? There's so many messages that hit people, right? I don't have an unlimited budget, so I can't run a lot of paid advertising. So how do you get in front of people to share all the resources that are available? If we could, continue to amplify our voice. I know we're moving in the right direction. Maybe I'm a little impatient and I want to get there faster, but it's incredible to see the amount of resources that are available and the efforts of the team. Resources, not just funding, but the professional development and education that the team really takes the time to be able to do. So time, that's my biggest challenge, like most, I suppose.
That's very, very interesting.
Awesome. Well, we want to be respectful of your time, so we wanted to thank you so much for being on the show today. For everybody listening at home, you can view all the past episodes on artofmarketingpodcast.com and check everything else out on appliedart.com. But where can people find more about the Iowa Department of Cultural Affairs?
Sure. We are at iowaculture.gov, G-O-V, is our website. So we'd love to have people come there, that you can sign up for newsletters on it, and you can also find us on pretty much any social channel that you look for at Iowa Culture.
Okay, awesome.
Or
We'll make
come to
sure
State
we,
Historical Building.
yes, we'll make sure we link up your LinkedIn as well. If people have specific questions, they can reach out to you, but we'll put everything else in the show notes so people can find more and learn and hit that education
Yes.
piece you talked about. So
Thank you, Jana. It's amazing all this things you guys are doing. It's really amazing. It's a
Really
Truly.
proud
lot.
of the team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks for having me on today. I really appreciate it.